Hi there, welcome to this crash course on DataKit, one of the most critical components in the TrueWatch observability stack. Today, we'll go over what DataKit is, how it works, and the different ways you can deploy it across environments, from containers to Kubernetes and even air-gapped setups. So first, what exactly is DataKit? If you have used Datadog before, think of DataKit as the TrueWatch equivalent of the Datadog agent. It's a lightweight piece of software that you install on your servers, VMs, containers, or cloud instances. Its main job is to collect, process, and forward telemetry data, things like metrics, logs, and traces, to TrueWatch for monitoring, observability, and security. You can think of it as a data bridge between your systems and TrueWatch, with three main responsibilities. The first being unified data collection. In traditional setups, you'd have separate collectors for metrics, logs, and traces. DataKit replaces all those with a single agent that gathers data from multiple sources. Secondly, DataKit can pre-process data before sending it out, such as adding tags, filtering logs, and passing formats. When it sends out the data, it also employs techniques such as buffering, batching, and retries. This offloads work from your applications and saves bandwidth. Finally, DataKit can send your data anywhere. While it's built primarily for TrueWatch, it also supports forwarding of data to tools like Prometheus or InfluxDB. So first, what exactly is DataKit? If you have used Datadog before, think of DataKit as the TrueWatch equivalent of the Datadog agent. It's a lightweight piece of software that you install on your servers, VMs, containers, or cloud instances. Its main job is to collect, process, and forward telemetry data. Now that we know what DataKit does, let's talk about how data flows through it. When you set up DataKit, you will want to pay attention to inbound and outbound traffic. Outbound traffic is data being sent from DataKit to TrueWatch. It's controlled by a configuration variable called the dataway URL. Your unique dataway URL and token can be found in the TrueWatch console under the Integrations tab. Whereas for inbound traffic, by default, DataKit listens on port 9529. It's divided into private and public endpoints. The private APIs are used by local applications on the host itself for sending metrics, traces, or logs to DataKit. The public APIs can be exposed externally to allow remote reads or writes. DataKit's behavior is controlled by its many modules, which can be configured in two categories: major and optional. Major configuration includes the core modules that are enabled by default. For example, things like CPU, disk, mem, and container. These collect essential system metrics right out of the box. Another key setting here is the dataway URL, which tells DataKit where to send collected data. Optional configuration enables additional features like DD-trace, profiling, and logging, which are ideal for deeper application-level insights. You can edit these configurations via a config file on the host or a Kubernetes config map when running in clusters. Also, a pro tip is to always restart DataKit after changing configurations so that the new settings take effect. Now, let's take a look at how DataKit can be deployed. In a standalone Docker setup, DataKit runs as a single container on the host. It collects data from other containers through the Docker socket and shared file paths. This setup is lightweight, easy to manage, and great for development or edge environments. Now, let's take a look at how DataKit can be deployed. In a Kubernetes cluster, DataKit is typically deployed as a daemon set. That means that there's one DataKit pod running on each node in a cluster. Each agent collects metrics locally and sends them to TrueWatch via the dataway URL. This approach provides full visibility across pods and nodes and automatically scales with the cluster. In serverless Kubernetes environments such as AWS Fargate or Azure AKS, you don't have access to the underlying node, so you can't use daemon sets. Instead, DataKit runs as a sidecar container, or is embedded directly within the application container itself. This allows each workload to collect and forward its own telemetry, even though the nodes are managed by the cloud provider. For production systems, you can run DataKit in high availability HA mode by enabling the election configuration. In this setup, multiple DataKit instances run across nodes, but only one, the leader, actively forwards the data. If that instance fails, another automatically takes over, ensuring continuity and preventing duplicate data. In air-gapped environments where there's no direct internet access, DataKit can collect and buffer data locally. To send that data out securely, you can add a forward proxy between DataKit cluster and the TrueWatch cloud. DataKit itself supports a proxy mode, allowing it to act as a controlled gateway for outbound traffic. This design maintains observability even in restricted or compliance-heavy network. For production systems, You can run DataKit in high availability HA mode by enabling the election configuration. In this setup, multiple DataKit instances run across nodes. Okay, now let's move into a short demo section where I'll show you how to try out DataKit locally on your own machine. This will give you a hands-on idea of how it's installed, configured, and connected on TrueWatch. So first, this step is optional, but I highly recommend using OpStack to spin up a lightweight Linux environment right on your Mac. It's fast, isolated, and perfect for testing out tools like DataKit. So once your Linux instance is running, head over to the TrueWatch console, and under Integrations and DataKit, you'll see an installation command that's already pre-filled with your organization's dataway URL and token here. So just copy and paste that into your Linux terminal and run it to install DataKit. So I won't be showing that command here for token privacy reasons, but I've already installed a fresh copy of DataKit in my Linux environment over here on the right. Okay, so we'll do some basic checks now. So the first thing I'll do is start the DataKit service. So I can do this by typing sudo DataKit service -s. So just for your information, -t will terminate the running of DataKit. Okay, so now that DataKit is running, we can do some checks to verify that it is running properly. So we can start with DataKit check config. So this will show you all the default enabled modules that I mentioned previously in part 1. And if you basically here, you just need to check and see if any of your inputs have failed. And if you basically moving on, you can also do a call to the default port to see if it's up and running. Yeah, and so everything looks okay here. Okay, so some other heuristics that you might want to check out is the logs of DataKit. So DataKit has two main kind of logs. One is all the GIN requests that it is making. So that one you can see it here by running this command, sudo tail the GIN log. And it will show you all the calls that are currently made to the DataKit running on your Linux instance. And then it is the second command I'm going to show you is to see the logs of DataKit itself. So this one will show you if there's any errors or warnings with any of the modules. So as you can see here, there's some warnings. But yeah, warnings you don't really have to worry about. You can also do a grep error to check if there's anything significant. If so, for example, if there's any input that can't be started, it will usually show it up as an error. Moving on, you can also do a call to the default port to see if it's up and running. Yeah, and so everything looks okay here. Okay, so some other heuristics that you might want to check out is, so one other thing you can check is the DataKit monitor, and I'm going to do V for verbose. So this one will show you, here you can scroll through all the inputs to check exactly what you have running. So you can use the up and down arrow on your keyboard, as sometimes not everything shows up immediately. So one other thing you can check is the DataKit monitor, and I'm going to do V for verbose. And finally, we can head to our TrueWatch console to check if our host is now visible. Now you can see my machine, the Ubuntu 10 machine. It's now up and running. And if we click into it, we can see some very basic information about my machine. Yeah. I'm just going to show you roughly. So the processors, it will reflect all the processors that have been running on this Linux instance. Yeah, and metrics as well. Now you can see my machine, the Ubuntu 10 machine. It's now up and running. And if we click into it, we can. Now, I'm going to show you how to enable a specific module on DataKit. So this is under the optional configuration that I was talking about earlier in the first part of this presentation. So I already have a small Golang React web app with ddtrace instrumented on the back end. But for DataKit to start receiving these traces, I will need to enable the ddtrace module. So let's navigate to the folder where DataKit is installed. So this one, you can do this cd user local DataKit. This is the default path in which it's installed. I'll just show you what it looks like. The configuration files are found in conf.d. Yep, so let's take a look here. The configuration files are so in here you will see the main config file, which is datakit.conf. I'll just show it to you. Yeah, okay, it's brought me to the bottom of the file, but basically if you scroll to the top, you'll be able to see your dataway URL as well as the default enabled modules like CPU, memory, disk, container. But yeah, I won't be scrolling up here because I have my token there. But you can do the same on your own machine. So in here, you will see the main config file, which is datakit.conf. I'll just show it to you. The optional modules live in the samples directory. So I'm going to show you how to go there now. The optional modules live in the sample. So each module has a .conf.sample file. And to enable one, all you need to do is to remove the .sample suffix. So now I will be showing you for the ddtrace sample how I'm going to enable this. So I can just do a and that should make it appear here. And then what I'm going to do is to cat ddtrace to show you what's actually in there. Yeah, so for most of the time you won't need to edit the default configuration here, but if you do have any custom use cases, you can always refer to the docs and see exactly which commented out lines you need to uncomment. Yeah, so in this case for ddtrace, the default endpoints that will be used are listed over here. And these will be the endpoints you will be looking out for later when we run the DataKit monitor to check that everything is working properly. So each module has a .conf.sample file, and to enable one, all you need to do is to remove the .sample suffix. So now I will be showing you for the ddtrace sample how I'm going to enable this. So I can just, so now that we've already enabled the ddtrace, I will need to restart DataKit for the changes to take effect. Okay, now I'm going to start my web app and I'm going to send a few requests to generate some traces. So now that we've already enabled the ddtrace, I will need to restart DataKit for the changes to take effect. You see, when I start my web app locally, there will be some debug lines telling me that okay, this is a profiler, we can ignore that, but basically you can see that the data.tracer configuration is here and it will be listening on this path for the traces. You see, when I start my web app locally, there will be some debug lines telling me, hey, now I'm going to check that everything is fine on the CLI level first. Yeah, okay, so now you can see that compared to earlier when we ran the DataKit monitor command, we can see that now the ddtrace collector is enabled here, and we can also see it in the inputs info here. And finally, under the HTTP APIs, we can see that the v0.4 traces is being used. So one key thing to take note here, if you want to make sure everything is running well, is that you need to check that the status is okay. It cannot be unknown or not found, and also the size of the packets being sent, it needs to have a actual number. It cannot be like not applicable or something like that. If you see any of those see anything that's contrary to this, you might want to take a look at the logs and try to grab if you can find any errors, because most of the time there will be. Okay, now I'm going to check that everything is fine on the CLI level first. Yeah, okay, so now let's finally go back to the TrueWatch console and see if we can see if there are any traces coming in. Okay, so be able to find it under the EPM. So now I do have quite a few services running, and okay, so my service is called Vault Service and DB, Vault Service DB and Vault Service. So now you can see it's actually up here. So to look at it, we can just click on this, and yay, we can see some traces. Some of them are Vault DB as well as Vault Service, and here you can see that if the trace ID is the same, it means that it comes from the same RAM request, basically the same action that the front end triggers. That's it for this short demo. So you just saw how to install, verify, and extend DataKit locally. So for more detailed guides and advanced setups, you can check out our TrueWatch DataKit documentation. We have sample, YAML, Ansible, and Helm configs for Kubernetes-based setups also that you can feel free to download and try out.